after a series opening 4-0 shutout win behind Zach Wheeler's dominant start against the San Diego Padres Monday night. Tuesday's game was canceled due to rain, postponed, made up as a doubleheader on Wednesday. And the Phillies and the Padres went into that, each of them were trying to win the series after the Phillies got that first win to start the series. Unfortunately for the Phillies, they lost game one of that doubleheader on Wednesday yesterday, but they were able to come back and win later on that day in game two to win that series 2-1 against the San Diego Padres. The Phillies are now 4-2 in their last 6 games, coming off of that 3-game sweep at the hands of the Houston Astros, which was just frustrating and just a dominant series pitching-wise by the Astros down there in Houston. The Phillies are off today on Thursday. After that doubleheader yesterday, they were scheduled to have an off day normally anyway, even if it wasn't a doubleheader. And then they begin a 3-game series at home in South Philadelphia against the Cincinnati Reds this weekend, this 4th of July weekend, getting things kicked off on the 4th, Friday afternoon. All 3 games are day games for the Phillies, 2 1 o'clock games Friday and Sunday, and a 4 o'clock game on Saturday. So plan accordingly and make sure to tune in to the Phillies on this holiday weekend. Welcome into Phillies Daily, everybody. I'm your host, Mickael. Make sure you guys subscribe for more Phillies content right here on Phillies Daily. As I had mentioned, the Phillies took 1 of 2 in that doubleheader yesterday on Wednesday against the San Diego Padres. The first game, as I said as well, they were not able to win that one, the Phillies. It was just too little, too late for the Phillies. They were shut out through the first 5 innings of that ball game. And then Kyle Schwarber, the Schwarbarian, hit a Schwarbomb in the 6th inning. Unfortunately, it was just a solo home run. So the Padres did have a 6-0 lead at the time and only just made it a 6-1 lead then for the Padres with that Schwarber solo shot. The Phillies were able to rally a little bit later in that game. They scored 2 runs in the 7th inning, 1 run in the 9th inning, but unfortunately that's all they could muster out of their offense in game 1, and they lost 6-4. Now, game 2, a little bit of a different story for the Phillies. Christopher Sanchez, he has been really dominant for the Phillies yet again in 2025, just like last year when he was an all-star for the team, earned that contract extension mid-season, and he's just been lights out for the Phillies in 2025. He was dominant again against the Padres in that second game of the doubleheader yesterday. He went 7 innings. He allowed just 5 hits, 0 walks, which again, I have mentioned this in his past few starts as well. He struggled with command early on through the 2025 season, but recently he's been limiting the walks, and I don't even think he's allowed to walk in his past couple starts now. So it's great to see Christopher Sanchez really eliminate that from his game, because now that was the one thing really holding him back in 2025, and now he is just right up there with the best of them, especially in the National League among starting pitchers. So 0 walks, just 1 earned run in that 7-inning performance, and he also had 5 strikeouts. He picked up the win, and he threw just 85 pitches in that ball game. So really impressive out of Christopher Sanchez all around in that doubleheader, game 2 of that doubleheader. The offense was able to tally 10 hits, and they scored 5 runs in that game 2 of the doubleheader, all without their superstar Bryce Harper, who's trying to manage himself as he returns from this right wrist inflammation that he missed 22 games with prior. So he played the first game of the doubleheader, wasn't in the lineup for the second game of the doubleheader, but the Phillies offense was able to produce without Bryce Harper in the lineup, score 5 runs, get 10 hits, and win that ball game 5-1 to win that series against a good Padres team. As I said earlier, 2-1 as we head into this holiday weekend against the Cincinnati Reds. Now, in game 1, during that Phillies loss, unfortunately, the young kid, Mickael, didn't have his best stuff against the Padres, which is why the Phillies ultimately lost that game. Not the sole reason, because the offense couldn't really get anything going, as I said, until later in the ball game. A little too late for them. But Mickael, he just struggled in that ball game in game 1, particularly in the 2nd inning. Mickael first, he got a strikeout to start that 2nd inning. Then he allowed a walk. Then he allowed a single. So there was runners on 1st and 2nd with 1 out. He got a fly out, so 2 outs. Looks like he could get out of it. 2 runners on, 2 outs, not horrible against a good offense like the Padres. But that's when things spiraled out of control for Mickael. And unfortunately, the Padres got the best of him. He allowed 3 consecutive walks after he recorded that flyout for the second out. As I said, first and second 2 outs, then 3 consecutive walks. So with those walks, 2 runs ended up scoring in that inning. And then Manny Machado, the Padres' third baseman, he hit a 3-run bases clearing double to give the Padres an early 5-0 lead in that second inning of the first game of the doubleheader. Unfortunately for Mickael, that's all we would see out of him in that ball game. The Phillies replaced him with Max Lazar in that second inning after the Manny Machado 3-run bases clearing double. Abel's final line was 1 2/3 innings, 2 hits, 5 walks in that 1 2/3 innings. Just you can't be doing that at the major league level, especially that short into a game. 5 walks is horrible. Can't give up free bases throughout an entirety of a game. So in just less than 2 innings, 5 walks is just, completely just unacceptable out of a starting pitcher at the major league level. And then obviously those 5 earned runs as well. He picked up the loss. Mickael now has a 5.04 ERA through his first 6 starts in his major league career. Obviously got off to a really great start to his first couple games, but now he's had some rough games here and there, especially yesterday in that first game of the doubleheader against the Padres. Now, a little bit of an alarming trend that we don't really like to see right now with Mickael since he's been playing in the majors. He doesn't really seem to live up to and pitch up to the good teams. He struggles against the good teams. He pitches well against the bad teams, but he struggles against the good teams, and that's really, not good for a major league pitcher. You got to play well against all level of talent, and he just really hasn't showed that yet in his short major league career. He pitched really well in 3 of his 6 starts, and of those 3 starts were against the Pirates, the Marlins, and at the time, the Blue Jays. Obviously, the Pirates and the Marlins are 2 of the worst teams in Major League Baseball in 2025. And then the Blue Jays, at the time when Mickael pitched well against them, the Blue Jays were just 2 games over 500. They were 31-29 entering that game against Abel. And now they have turned things around. They are tied for first place in the American League East with the New York Yankees. So they've won quite a few since the Phillies played them back then when Mickael pitched well against them. But as I said at the time, weren't really that great. So kind of falls under that category with the Pirates and the Marlins. Not as bad, but still a team that was kind of struggling and not really where they are right now. As I said, he struggled against some of the better teams, the top teams, especially in the National League, because that's who he's faced. And those teams were the Chicago Cubs, the New York Mets, and obviously the San Diego Padres. The Cubs are first in their division in the NL Central. The Mets and the Padres both own a National League wildcard spot as we head into this Thursday slate of action. So all playoff teams right now that Mickael has faced there. And in those 3 games, he's 0-2 he has allowed 14 hits, 8 walks, 12 earned runs in just 8 2/3 innings against those 3 teams combined. He's also allowed 7 home runs in those 8 2/3 innings against those 3 top teams. So as I said, a little bit of an alarming trend for Mickael and the Phillies. Hopefully he can figure things out and really pitch up to the competition against better teams, because he can't just continue his major league career, dominating the bad teams and then just falling apart against the good teams, not going deep into ball games, making your team fall into a deep early hole. Just can't be doing that as a major league starting pitcher. So he's got to turn things around, or we might not see Mickael in the majors too much longer if he can't figure things out against some of the better teams, especially as we head into the second half of the season and trying to make a playoff push. Now, getting away from kind of the negatives, the Phillies were able to win that game 2 of the doubleheader, as I said, and thanks in large part to the offense. And obviously, Christopher Sanchez was dominant, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. But the offense, the 4th of July came early for the Phillies offense. They provided us with early fireworks in that second game of the doubleheader yesterday on Wednesday. Max Kepler, he's been in the spotlight recently because of his comments about his playing time and his promise being the everyday left fielder or whatever when he signed this offseason with the Phillies. He's been struggling at the plate really all season long. Very streaky hitter. He's had some good moments, a lot of bad moments, but Max Kepler hit a 2-run home run in the 4th inning of Game 2 of that doubleheader. Brandon Marsh, he also hit a home run of his own, a solo shot in the 5th inning. Alec Boehm, he had an RBI triple in the 7th inning. So the Phillies offense were just, hitting the baseball all around, extra base hits, power. Can even go back, as I said in Game 1, when Kyle Schwarber hit that solo home run in the 6th inning. So fireworks came early at Citizens Bank Park in front of the Phillies faithful in South Philadelphia. Hopefully that can continue over the weekend and really just light up the sky for the 4th of July weekend. Now, shifting gears, since it's July now, as I've been doing in a lot of my recent videos, if you guys have been following along with Phillies Daily, I've been talking about trade rumors leading up to this trade deadline surrounding the Philadelphia Phillies or players that I see fit that are realistic options that the Phillies could look into and trade for. Today, I am talking about St. Louis Cardinals reliever Phil Maton. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, Maton, I know that name. Yes, Phil Maton is the older brother of former Phillies Nick Maton. Nick Maton didn't really have a long Phillies career, but he kind of was a fan favorite during his career at the time with the Phillies. So Phil Maton's his older brother. As I said, he's a Cardinals right-handed reliever. He's a 32-year-old veteran. He is having a very good season for the Cardinals in 2025. Most of the attention in the Cardinals bullpen, the featured guy is Ryan Helsley, their closer. And he should get a lot of the attention because he is a great closer, a great reliever. But Phil Maton is having a very good season in the Cardinals bullpen. He has a 1.91, a sub-2 ERA with 17 holds and 2 saves. He has also recorded 44 strikeouts in just 33 innings so far in 2025. He's also allowed 0 home runs through those 33 innings, which is always great to see, especially out of a late inning reliever, because when you're letting up a home run as a late inning reliever, usually you're in a situation where you're trying to hold on to a lead, you're trying to keep your team in the game, so home runs are horrible at that point of the game. You can't be allowing them. So having 0 home runs allowed is a great thing out of a late inning high leverage reliever, and Phil Maton has been getting the job done for the Cardinals. He's been mostly utilized in the 8th inning in a high leverage late inning role for the Cardinals in 2025. As I said, he's a 32-year-old veteran, so he is going to be a free agent after this season. Makes it a little bit easier to trade for a guy like that when he's an older player, free agent, not making too much money. The Cardinals are in a National League playoff wildcard spot. They are kind of right there in the division race in the NL Central as well, so may not be looking to trade some of their guys. They still could, you never know. But if they do begin to fall out of the playoff picture, lose that wild card spot as we head in towards the end of July and towards that July 31st trade deadline, the Cardinals could become sellers and they could be looking to ship off a guy like Phil Maton, who's a veteran on an expiring deal, to teams that are looking for bullpen help like the Phillies really need, because that has been a weakness for them in 2025. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Phillies Daily. I'm your host, Mickael. Make sure you guys like, comment, share, and subscribe for more Phillies content right here on Phillies Daily. As I said, the Phillies are rolling. They are 4-2 in their last 6 games. They are off today before kicking off a 3-game series for this 4th of July weekend against the Cincinnati Reds. Hopefully, they can get the job done there. The Reds have been a pretty solid team so far this year. Pretty good team. So, let's go Phils. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, go Phils.